So my ex, he won't leave me alone. It's been years since we've broken up, and I catch him at the coffee shops, down the street at the restaurants, at the bars, everywhere in this small town. But he's not just doing what he wants to do, he's following me. I thought this was the final straw, when he decides to try to ruin my biggest day ever. My wedding, which he was not supposed to be a part of. I'm 24 female and getting married to the love of my life, Wayne. It's later this year and everything should be perfect, but it's not. Not that there's an issue between Wayne and me, no. We're happy as can be. The problem is with my ex, Gabe. We dated when we were young. I was 18, he was 17. We did not even date for that long because let's be real. How often do relationships we have when we're teenagers last for? We broke up because I cheated on him with Wayne. And Gabe has been a mess, a pain in the butt ever since. He's obsessed with me. No matter what I do, he will not leave me alone. It's that simple. It's got to the point where I'm scared to go out alone because I simply never know where he'll even be. I had to change my phone number oh so many times. Because no matter what I do, he always manages to find out my new number. And it's super creepy. And the harassment starts all over again. I'm so glad that I have Wayne and my family, as I would be an absolute total wreck if I was having to deal with him on my own. To begin with, I did not take it seriously. I just thought he was a complete sado and he just needed to move on with his life. But then it just did not stop. No matter how many times I told him to leave me alone, it just carried on. And to make matters worse, he always denied that he was following me. He said it was not his fault, that I was in the same place that he was. After all, it's not a big town. I know lots of people. Well, they're here, but they're not always everywhere that I go, so I knew that he was lying. I started to see him outside my house at night, and I would get phone calls from a withheld number that would hang up, and when I answered or do creepy, deep breathings down the line, they never said anything, but I knew it was Gabe. He was already following me, so who else could it be? I started to take photos of him when I saw him at the same places that I was, so that I could have a record of him stalking me. Wayne and I stayed together, and our relationship got better and better, until finally Wayne proposed to me and we got married. Well, Wayne knew all about Gabe, but he told me to ignore him as he was not worth getting worked up about. After all, Wayne would protect me. I never thought Wayne and I would be more than a one-night stand, and I have to admit that to start with, I was just trying to make Gabe jealous, and we hardly ever saw each other when we were dating. But Gabe would not forgive me. Instead, he decided to stalk me and make my life a living hell. Gabe is from a family that's fairly well off, and his parents and sister never liked me. I'm from a family that's considered to be, quote, rough in this town. My brother and dad are always getting into fights, and my mom is well known for shoplifting. We don't have much money, so sometimes she would get stuff that we need for school and other things. It's not a big deal. The shops can afford it. Gabe's sister, Cheryl, she's 19 and was especially vocal about how much she did not like me. She was only 14 when Gabe and I dated and was right gobby cow. I hated her, and I still do. She's always telling people that Gabe is not doing anything wrong. She is such a liar. After a while, I just got so fed up with everything, the phone calls, the abusive text messages, and the fact that Gabe was stalking me, and that my mom told me to go to the police and tell them about it. I did, and they said they would talk to Gabe and tell him to stay away from me. But I found out from the police officer I was dealing with that Gabe had denied everything, and said that it wasn't him. He showed the police his phone to show that he had no contact and, well, it meant nothing. It's so easy to get a cheap phone. Gabe's pretty clever, so he's not going to be stupid as to use his phone to do this. Cheryl backed him up, saying I was just imagining all of this and that the police said that without real evidence to show Gabe was actually doing this, there was not much that they could do. I'd shown them the photos, but because it was always in public places, they said that Gabe could argue that he just happened to be there at the same time as me. What a load of rubbish. He is there every time I go somewhere, and I mean literally every time he's there. I think he must have his friends watching me and then letting him know exactly my details of my location. I'm fed up with it, and the police will not do anything, and it's ruining my happiness about my upcoming wedding, as I'm always on edge. I'll have to find a way to stop Gabe from tormenting me on my own, as the police are useless. Wayne and my parents have said to keep taking photos of him when I see him, and to keep a record of all the text and phone calls. Eventually, well, he'll make a mistake and we'll be able to show the police and then deal with him from there. Wayne suggested I started this post, as he said that he was sure that a lot of people had issues with the creepy ex. Maybe some would have an idea about how we can get concrete evidence and proof against Gabe, so that we can get him out of our lives and go into our married life without some creepy ex stalking me. Let me know if you have any evidence on how to deal with this weirdo. Update number 1. I'm staggered at exactly how many people have problems with their ex-partners. What is it with people not accepting that the relationship is over? They need to get a grip and move on with their own lives. It's really sad that they make their whole lives about their ex and not about themselves. Thank you to everybody who helped with how to keep good records, and how to make the police take me actually seriously. It scares me that when I read some of your stories that the awful things that happen to some people might happen to me if I don't find a way to get Gabe to leave me the heck alone. Well, I've been trying to not let him get to me, but it's never ending. Wherever I am, there's Gabe. I can't even go for a nice coffee with my bridesmaid without Gabe being at a different table in the coffee shop. Sometimes he's there first, but I don't think I should have to go to my favorite places just because he hangs out there, knowing that they're places that I'm eventually going to end up going to. I'm a regular at some of the coffee shops, so all he has to do is move around between them until he eventually finds me. My mom said I should change my routine, and yeah, maybe I should. But when it feels like he's won and that it's simply not fair, why should I have to stop doing what I want to just because of him? I'm grateful for the ongoing support. Last night, things came to a head in some ways, and I was out with my friends having a few beers. I looked across the bar, and there was Gabe, staring at me. I was so upset because I was just trying to have a good night out with my bridesmaid, and there he was to spoil it. By the time I saw him, I'd drunk a bit, so I think that made me more confident than I normally was, and I went over to confront him. Even though my friends were all telling me just to leave it alone, I couldn't take it anymore. We'd been separated for years, and I'm getting married to Wayne. I didn't want this to carry on any longer. So I went over to tell him to leave me alone. I didn't see Cheryl until I was almost there, but I was so angry and fed up I thought to heck with it. I asked Gabe why he was following me, and that he needed to leave me alone. He actually had the audacity to look shocked that I confronted him about it, and confused that I was telling him to leave me alone. He must be even more delusional than I thought, and thinks I'm enjoying this. Cheryl laughed and said that I was the one who was pestering them and they were just here to have a nice drink in peace. I said I was sick of Gabe being everywhere I was and he needs to leave me alone. Cheryl rolled her eyes and told me to stop being so full of myself, and it's all in my head. After all, this was the only bar in the neighborhood, and it's a really small town. She said that I was trying to make myself out to be a victim of something that was all in my head. I was so mad that I threw my drink on her and stormed out of there. We had to leave as my night was ruined by Gabe and his stupid sister. I was still upset and angry when I got home, and Wayne was there with my dad and my brother. They asked me what was wrong, so I told them exactly what happened. That Gabe had been at the bar and that his sister had told me it was all in my head. I said it felt like they were rubbing my face in the fact that there was nothing I could do about the situation and it was never going to end. Ever. I knew that Cheryl must be the one who was helping Gabe know exactly my whereabouts. I wouldn't be surprised if she was also helping him to send text messages. It was obviously a family thing. She always hated me, so she would be doing it to hurt me more. Wayne and the others have been drinking, and they were angrier than I had seen them. They told me to wait at the house, and they would go and have a word with Gabe and his sister, and tell them to stay away from me for good. Well, I was so happy that Wayne was willing to protect me. That's what a man should do for his woman. I stayed at the house, so I don't exactly know what happened, but it ended up in a fight, and Wayne, my dad, and my brother Gabe gave a beating and told him to stay away from me. Gabe called the police and reported us, but I showed the police all my records and said that we were at the end of our patience and the police had done nothing to stop Gabe from stalking me, so my family had finally had enough. In the end, Wayne, my dad, and my brothers only got a fine and a warning because people in the bar were not clear on exactly, who threw the first punch. I got the police to pay attention to me and look at all the messages and photos that they told Gabe officially that he needs to stay away from me or he's going to be arrested. Well, he was given a formal warning about actually stalking me. And I have started an application for a restraining order, so if he breaks that, he will immediately be arrested. It makes me feel much safer. Hopefully, it's all over now. Update number 2. Wow, I can't believe it's almost been 6 months since I last posted. For a while, life was actually pretty calm, and I had a good time planning my wedding. It was amazing to see that once the restraining order was in place, Gabe had to literally turn around and walk away if he saw me at a coffee shop, at a bar, because otherwise he'd be arrested. I really felt good that somebody had listened to me. There were a couple times that he did not leave and I called the police. Well, he was arrested for breaking the order, so that'll be on his criminal record forever. I felt bad, to be honest, but he had to learn to stay away from me once and for all. However, that is not the big news that I have to share on my update. Gabe and his sister really messed up this time and took everything too far, and now Gabe's about to go to prison. Hopefully, for a long time. Well, they tried to ruin my wedding and get Wayne and me into trouble in a big way. I don't know the full deets about it, obviously. I only saw the ending and heard what was brought up in court. All of which Gabe denied to the end. The jury thankfully saw right through him, and he's not sitting in a jail cell where he will be for a long time. At least I won't need to worry about him for very long. He is seriously paying for messing with me. I'm ahead of myself. Sorry, I'm just so happy with the result. On the morning of my wedding, I was at home getting ready when I got a phone call from my mother, saying that she'd seen Gabe and Cheryl in the area of the church, but she was keeping a sharp eye open in case they were, there to cause trouble. I was so angry. But an hour later, she called to say that they had gone, and I'm getting married in a hotel, so my mother was already there helping to set up the decor, as I am very fussy that it is exactly how I want it to be. I had to, been stressed and not sure if I could cope with turning up and seeing Gabe at the wedding. That would totally just spoil my perfect day. My bridesmaids were reassuring me and telling me not to worry, as the restraining order was still in place and we would just call the police if he ever turned up. Over the last 6 months, I've still been having text and phone calls from withheld numbers, but because we can't prove it's him, there's nothing the police will do about it. I just have to keep changing my number, which, by the way, is very, very annoying. I can't even stress it enough. I turned up at the wedding venue, and I could see that there was some kind of issue going on. but it didn't seem to be anything I needed to worry about. I was too happy to be getting married to Wayne to even care about some weirdos hanging outside. I should have paid more attention, because if I had, then I might have seen Gabe in amongst the weirdos where he belongs, really. I was at the entrance, waiting to go to the wedding, when the manager came over to me and said that he was about to call the police, and that he was not going to let the wedding go ahead. Well, I was horrified, demanded to know why he was ruining the best day of my life. He said that his staff had found some worrying things in the venue toilets and in the hall where we would be getting married, and so, until the police arrived, we could not go ahead with the ceremony. I was confused and broke down in tears. I just knew that Gabe had something to do with this. There's no way it could be anything but some plan he had to stop my wedding. It felt like an eternity until the police finally arrived, and I was shocked to see that they brought a load of dogs with them. And I'm talking a bunch. The venue was decorated lovely, and now I had to watch big, stupid, slobbering dogs sniff and drool all over my linen and chairs. I was even more upset when Wayne came to find me, as he was not supposed to see me before I made my grand entrance down the aisle to him. He was as confused as I was, and all we could do was wait for the police to tell us what the heck was going on. It must have looked like a hell out of a sight for the other guests in the hotel. A bride in her dress crying in the arms of her groom while this big dog sniffed around the place. So just when I thought it could not get worse, it did. The police came over and said they would be shutting down the room as they found a large amount of Class A drugs. And my wedding. We all had to go to the police station to give statements, and it was as I was let out the hotel by the police, in my wedding dress, that I saw Gabe, and I knew that he had something to do with this. I saw that smirk on his face as I got into the police car, and I had never been so sure of anything in my life that Gabe had somehow set this up and he was trying to ruin my special day, and get me into serious trouble while he's at it. It was payback for me getting a restraining order against him. I could not believe that he would sink this low, but there's no way he was getting away with it. At the police station, we all gave statements, and with mine, I told the police about Gabe, and the restraining order, and how he had been causing trouble for me over the last 5 years. I said I'd seen him outside the hotel, and I was sure he had to come to watch, because he knew what was going to happen. The police even asked if I could prove that he had anything to do with it, and I said I didn't, but I knew it was him. I got out my phone to show them the messages that I had received even after the restraining order was put into place, and how abusive and threatening that they have actually gotten. I was surprised to see that there was another message waiting that I had not read. I must have missed it in the chaos of getting ready, and to be fair, I had not had any time to look at my phone as I was getting married. The message simply said, "Enjoy your wedding. Sorry, enjoy the inside of a police cell. Game check match to me." I knew then that it was Gabe, as he played chess, and he used to say that to me all the time, and I never knew what it meant. He would say it when he beat me at something like bowling or a card game, and now he used it when he had finally ruined my day. I told the police all this, and they did not look convinced, but said they would look into it. We were all allowed to go, but my wedding venue was a crime scene, so there's no way I'm getting married that day. Instead, I went home and cried for hours at how my day was just ruined and Gabe had won. I was so surprised a few days later when there was a knock at the door. It was a police officer, one that I've been dealing with about the stalking incident. He had come to tell me that they finally had proof that Gabe was the one who was responsible for all the messages, and of course, also responsible for the drugs that were planted at the wedding venue. He had been arrested, and although he was denying it, they had a pretty secure case against him. I was shocked, but relieved that finally somebody was seeing the hell that I've been through for the past 5 years. There was a lot of stuff that happened that was boring legal stuff, but I'll skip that and just tell you about the court case. It turns out that Gabe had finally got careless. When I had accused him of being the one to send that text to me on the morning of my wedding, the police had been thorough and gone to his house. He had allowed them to search his room, which was stupid as they found the phone that was used to message me, and once they found that they brought in the drugs and there were traces of Class A drugs all over his wardrobe, or he must have hidden them before taking them to the wedding. They managed to track down the dealer who told them that he had sold them to Gabe a few days before the wedding. Gabe simply denied it all. But I think even his family was having a hard time finding a way to think he was innocent. He was indeed found guilty, and got a prison sentence, and that was that. He's out of my life and punished for what he did. He protested his innocence the whole way out the courtroom, which nobody even simply believed. Which is a shame because, well, he is completely and totally innocent. He did none of it. Nothing at all. The only thing he did was dump me because of a stupid one-night stand and refuse to take me back. I was on to a good thing, and he was supposed to be my ticket out from my crappy family and crappy life, but he took that away, and now he's sitting in prison. I should become a master criminal genius because I fooled you all, just like I fooled the police, my family, and the jury. The moral of the story is, don't annoy a girl who did not get what she wants. I've changed all the names, so I figured I would be honest at the end. Now I will get on with my life and leave that idiot rotting in prison. Peace out. Update number 3, final update of the story. Hey guys, I'm just updating this in the comments of the post as I'm not OP. This might get deleted, but I wanted to give the story the final post it deserved. My name's Cheryl. Well, it isn't, but and the story above it is. And I'm the sister of the man she called Gabe throughout the entire story. Well, before she lost it at the end and decided to give away that she was actually a complete psycho that we always knew she was. OP's name is Becky. That is her real name, so you can look it up if you want to read the facts, and she dated my brother for a short time, when they were teenagers. I never liked her. She was a nasty person from the very get-go, from the first time my brother brought her home. She was always trying to cause problems and wanted to always be the center of attention at all times. She would pick fights with Gabe and then cry and make him apologize repeatedly. I told Gabe so many times that she was not a good person, but she was extremely pretty, and so I think he forgave her awful personality in favor of her good looks. Finally, she cheated on him with the guy she calls Wayne throughout the story. Gabe finally saw sense and dumped Becky, and we all breathed a sigh of relief, as she was not good for him and would just bring him down. Gabe was so much better than her, and he deserved to be with someone and something who did not make him feel worthless all the time. Becky spent weeks trying to convince Gabe to take her back. She was really desperate. Gabe refused, and that should have been the end of it, but it was just the start of the nightmare that was all of her makings. When the real story came out in court, it was absolutely horrific, the extremes that she had gone just because that, well, anger at my brother. I think she would have liked to do this update and once again play the victim. However, she can't, as she's now the one sitting in prison, and they don't let you have internet in there, so I thought I'd do her a favor and update it for her. My version might not meet her standards, but unlike the rest of it, it'll be the truth. One thing Becky did tell the truth about was how small our hometown is, and it's really hard to avoid anyone you don't want to see. Oh, poor Gabe was always trying to avoid Becky, as she was just out to cause trouble and play the victim as always, which she did not do well. I'm not sure when the idea started in her tiny little pea-head brain that she would just set up this elaborate revenge plan. I have to give her a bit of credit though. It was quite clever and would have worked if the dumb idiot had not blabbed her mouth. I want to thank my friend, who shall remain nameless, who actually found this post when she was browsing and realized it sounded so much like our story. I was not sure, but I was prepared to do anything to prove my brother was not the bad guy. I screenshotted everything, printed it out just in case she had second thoughts and went to delete the post. I'm so surprised it's still here. She did not even take it down when everything started to go wrong. Deep down, she's so sure of herself, and I think she did think everybody would just, believe her, and it'd fall apart. There's so much to tell about, would take me forever, and I can't be bothered wasting more time than necessary on her, because my brother deserves to have his name cleared on here as well as in the real world. In the real world, it's going to take a long time for him to get back on his feet. And he had been through hell. Becky was making sure that she was everywhere Gabe was. So there was stalking, but not on Gabe's part. She was also making sure everybody knew that she thought he was stalking her. The text messages and phone calls, I think you can guess who that was. Yeah, she was sending it to herself. When the police did not do what she wanted, she just upped her game and picked a fight with Gabe and me in the bar, which resulted in her fiancé, quote, and family coming and starting a fight with Gabe. What she did not say was that it was not just Gabe who was beaten, it was me as well. Also, charges were brought against her father and brother, so they did not get off with it with no punishment. Obviously, the wedding was her masterpiece. Her wedding was not ruined because it turns out she had no intention of marrying Wayne. He was just a pawn in her plan, as she knew that he had to temper and could be, relied on to beat up Gabe if she needed it to happen. This is where I need to give Becky some credit, as it was a genius plan for a stupid girl. It was all her. Every single bit of it. She bought the drugs, planted them the night before they were getting the venue set up, confident that they could not be found until the morning. To make sure they were, she did a phone call to say she was a guest and she thought she saw drug stuff in the bathroom, which she left in the bin. That started the snowball rolling effect, which led to the arrest and conviction of my brother. The phone was in Gabe's room, and the one puzzled us all, as there was drug residue as well. That was the one moment I actually doubted my brother. We have neighbors across from our house who have been visiting their family in Europe, and so, had not been home when the whole thing went down. They were away for around 5 months and came home around the time we found this post. The cameras they had left to protect their house had picked up Becky. That's right, we saw Becky squeezing her little butt through Gabe's window when we were all out, and that's how the phone and drugs got there. She tried to deny it was her, but it got her coming out as well, so she might have been able to deny it was her, but not her face. The drug dealer who gave evidence against my brother turned on her when he was offered a plea deal to tell the police the truth. He admitted that he had sold the drugs to Becky in exchange for the money she had stolen from her job, which was also discovered once the investigation got underway. She really had nowhere to turn, and when the police arrested her, she made a huge deal of screaming and crying to draw our attention to herself. I think once she realized she was done for, she decides to make the most of it, and all through the court cases she was like a film star, playing the part of the wronged woman. She cried pretended to faint 4 times. But in the end, she got what she deserved and is sitting in prison where I hope she'll stay for a good while. Gabe was released and got an apology and a payment from the state, but he was broken. We're leaving tomorrow to go traveling so he can get away from this small town. I think Becky left the post up as it was her legacy, and she's still proud of what she achieved. I heard that she's trying to set herself up as Queen Bee in prison, but I don't know if that's true, and I don't care. She tried to destroy my brother, and I hope she rots. Okay guys, so here's the crazy part about this story. I was reading through the comment section, and it seems this was definitely a real story. It happened in the country of Turkey, and all the names were changed, but this is how it actually went down. Almost word for word from the story, it was depicted in a story that I read from Turkey. Oh my gosh, what would you guys do if you were part of this disaster? And this whole time I was feeling sorry for OP, but it turns out she's like a freaking evil mastermind behind the whole thing. Drop in the comment section what you would do if you went ahead and found out all this stuff was going down and you're Gabe sitting there in prison and you didn't do any of this stuff. Wow. You know what they say when there's always two sides of a coin? Well, in the beginning, we were just looking at OP's side. So go ahead guys, drop your comments down below. If you're new to the channel, make sure that you do subscribe for daily videos, and I try to cover every single update available. Guys, have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.